Greetings, my name is Nathaniel Skidmore, and I'm doing this video for Jacksonville State University Microbiology course taught by Dr. Blair. And the category we're going to be talking about today is current trends in food microbiology, with a specific focus on microbiology in a cow's stomach and how that relates to the food it eats. So, to try to lure you into listening to this video more closely, I'm going to give you a picture of a steak. Now, steak is delicious. Steak comes from these things, cows. And on a personal story, I was once called a monster for saying a cow is beautiful, but it's even more beautiful when it's cooked and on my plate. And this is important to note because you would rather eat a big and strong steak than a little and weak steak. Now, that sounded like a bunch of rambling nonsense, and I'm sure it is, but I want to provide you some more information related to it that will hopefully clarify what I'm trying to convey, because I think I've laid some pretty shaky groundwork so far. So the first article we're going to be looking at to illustrate my point on food microbiology in cows the article is from milkmeansmore.org, and I'm going to give you a brief intro into beef stomachs, and try saying that 5 times fast. Brief intro into beef stomachs. And the goal of this article is to provide an overview of the basic properties of the cow stomach in a very digestible manner. Now, if you want to read this article for yourself, I've provided you the URL for the article and the image that the article provides, and hopefully that'll allow you to be able to find the article on your own with relative ease. So now, quoting from the article, so do cows really have 4 stomachs? Yes and no. Cows technically only have 1 stomach, but it has 4 distinct compartments that are made up of rumen, reticulum, omasum, and obomasum. It is very different than a human stomach. That's why people often say cows have 4 stomachs. Now, I apologize for what was very likely awful pronunciation of a lot of those words. I've only ever read them, I've never heard them. So the key that we're supposed to take away from this article is that cow stomachs are very complex, and the article does also contain a video in it that'll provide its own explanation into the complexity of cow stomachs, and hopefully that'll allow you to gain a better understanding of them. Moving on to a little bit more in depth of an article. This is from beefmagazine.com. Once again, I've provided you with the image that the article provides and the URL for the article to where you can access it yourself if you want to on your own time. This article focuses on feeding the microorganisms in the rumen to perform their jobs better. Rumen, if you recall, is one of the sections that we outlined in our previous article, shown right here. And how feeding the microorganisms in the rumen to perform their jobs better is important, because big cows need big efficiency to be able to grow into big, beautiful creatures that turn into steak. I'm building around a common theme here. Quoting from the article, specifically someone named Dr. Janice Bowman of Montana State University, there are numerous species and types of bacteria, protozoa, and fungi present in the rumen, all with different characteristics. The presence of these various microbes and their affinities for different feed ingredients is a key reason why ruminants can successfully live on both high roughage and high concentrate diets. This is important to note because now we have outlined different microorganisms that can exist within rumen, part of the stomach of cows, and how they are trying to, through the use of microbiology, feed cows specific things that the microorganisms in the rumen can break down to perform their jobs better. Another quote from the article, which is crediting the work of a man named Tim McAllister, who's a researcher at Lethbridge Research Center in Alberta, Canada. Much of McAllister's research focuses on the ability of rumen microbes to digest various grains at different degrees of processing. He says wheat and barley are much more rapidly fermented in the rumen compared to corn and sorghum, but if you process corn to a fine particle size, it will surpass moderately processed barley in the time it takes to be fermented. And again, that was a quote from the article, not necessarily from the specific person, but the article did quote it, and that's where I got the information from. Biggest key to take away from this article is the resource management for the rumen's microorganisms. And now that we're getting like really deep into the information, we move on to an article from the USDA, which seeks also, once again, I've given you the URL for the article and an image from it to help you be able to find it easier. The article seeks to provide insight into the rumen microorganisms and why they are what is actually being fed when you are feeding a cow. And this is important to note because since you're not necessarily feeding the cow and you're feeding the microorganisms inside the cow, it gives you the opportunity to be able to more specifically give things that'll improve efficiency in the cow's vitals and various systems that it does. And this is good. Now, quoting from the article, again, the article from USDA. The microbes feed the cow. In other words, you are not feeding the cow, you are feeding the microbes. The microbes convert carbohydrates to volatile fatty acids, VFA, the main energy source for cow and main source of fat for milk. Convert non-protein N to high-quality microbial protein used by the cow, metabolize some plant toxins. Cow does do things for the rumen microorganism. That sounded like a horrible sentence, but let me try it again. The cow does do things for the rumen microorganism. It was just a tone issue. It brings food to them, it provides protection for them, removes fermentation products, etc. And those were mentioned in the quote before. But what does this sound like to you when you think about it? The cow brings food to the microorganisms in the rumen, it provides protection, removes fermentation products, and then the microorganisms in the rumen break down and process the food in a way that benefits the cow. What does this sound like to you? Kind of a symbiotic relationship is what it sounds like. However, that's more on a macroorganism and microorganism scale, so I don't know how that will fully work out. I just thought it was very interesting and worth pointing out. So moving on to, I believe, the last article we're going to be referencing from BectonRedAngus.com. So how does this all group together to form an understanding on food and microbiology in cattle specifically? So being able to better equip the rumen and microorganisms to perform their jobs will result in better cows that can give us better steak. Once again, I've given you the URL for the article and a very wonderful picture that shows how in the past 40-ish years, cows have gotten very much larger, largely because of the increase in information we have about microbiology. The article shows how the sizes and different breeds of cattle have changed over the past few decades. It's really amazing to consider because of the leaps and bounds that have been made in the understanding of microorganisms. Knowing how these microorganisms work and what makes them work more efficiently has greatly impacted the beef industry. So overall, I wanted to give you one last picture to look at that is a very rough image following the path that food takes inside the cow. You can see it goes into the rumen and then back up and then back into the other components of the stomach and is finally excreted at the end. And I thought you needed to see that because it outlines what I've been trying to illustrate this whole time with these articles I've been referencing. So I hope you can walk away from this video knowing more about the microorganisms in the rumen of cows, and hopefully you will recall this information next time you eat a steak. Thank you and have a wonderful day.